And now we welcome in Brian Campbell, CBS Sports combat analyst. And of course, we just saw UFC 283 down in Brazil, in Rio. First time in Brazil in 3 years. And BC, let's go ahead and start with the co-main event, the light heavyweight title there, the vacant light heavyweight title. And of course, it was our guy getting the win there, Jamahal Hill. Your thoughts here on Hill sort of winning there. And what did you think about the staying power and the fight that Teixeira showed?
Unreal staying power. And it's almost, unfortunate for Jamahal Hill in this breakthrough moment that our knee-jerk reaction is to want to talk about the performance from the 43-year-old former champion and Glover Teixeira in defeat. But here's where this played out in a good way for Jamahal Hill. It took this type of performance, stubborn, gritty, tough, from Teixeira over 5 rounds, for Jamahal Hill to show us that he has everything a UFC champion needs, despite the fact that he was only ranked 7th, and despite the fact that it took a draw in a vacant title fight in December to open up the opportunity for Hill to come in there. But this wasn't Jamahal Hill scoring the type of early finish that he's used to. This was him proving to Teixeira and any of his critics that he can go 5 hard rounds, that he himself has a great chin and an ability to bounce back. But you saw the boxing, you saw the poise, and you saw his ability to keep his back off the canvas for the majority of this fight, especially through the first round, to set a big tone. This was not best case scenario for the UFC's light heavyweight division, with the former champion Yuri Prochazka getting injured. But to see a young fighter like Jamahal Hill break through in the way he did, wow, this guy is championship ready, and he proved it in Brazil, on the road, in a legend's backyard.
You're absolutely right. I was just about to say that. A road game for Jamahal Hill, now improving to 12-1, coming off those 3 straight KOs. Let's go back to the 43-year-old, though. Glover Teixeira laid down his gloves there in the middle of the ring, there in the octagon. What do we make of the retirement there, and what sort of legacy does he leave?
An incredible legacy. We knew him in the past in the long winning streak he put forth in fighting John Jones for the light heavyweight title about a decade ago. But it's the twilight of the career of Glover Teixeira and the willingness to make insane action fights at the highest level. His title loss to Yuri Prochazka last year was not only the fight of the year, one of the craziest title fights this sport has ever produced. He was back at it here. He was never seemingly more than maybe one big punch away from potentially turning this fight around and winning it. But take note of his very humble post-fight speech, in which he took his gloves off and officially retired in the center of the cage. He said, look, maybe I'm a danger to myself and my own health at the end of the day. It is time to walk away. We haven't seen this type of recuperative ability in a fighter at this age, on this level, over a sustained period like we've had for Glover in recent years, who's had to rally back in many of the victories that led to him initially winning the championship and upsetting Jan Blachowicz. This has been an incredible final chapter to a career where, look, we talk about Brazil. We saw Shogun Rua retire tonight. We saw the great Jose Aldo get inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame or get announced. Glover Teixeira's name belongs with all the great Brazilian legends in this sport's history. We already knew that, but to see it play out this way in his senior years over the past few fights, humbled is the word I'll use to describe an incredible athlete and somebody who's just not willing to take no for an answer.
I think you're absolutely correct there, seeing the 43-year-old. Man, look, it's tough seeing those young bulls, man. I felt bad for him, BC. A 43-year-old, it's going to be hard to beat some of these young bulls, 35, 30, 25-year-olds out there. Let's go back to the co-main event there. Figueroa and Moreno. We had the draw, the Moreno win, then the Figueroa win, and then this, of course, they hate this word, but the quadrilogy there. Your thoughts here on Moreno getting the win there and the stoppage, and under the circumstances there in between the 3rd and the 4th round there, BC?
Yeah, I was more than happy with the stoppage and the way it went down. Obviously, the pro Davidson Figueiredo Brazilian crowd was going to boo, but it wasn't an eye poke that ultimately turned this fight around. It was a big left hand in round 3 that swelled, eventually closed, bloodied the eye of Davidson Figueiredo. Look, Brandon Moreno proved something in this rivalry, but really in this fight too. He's the winner of this rivalry with a record of 2-1-1 overall, but the 2 victories he owns in this, they were one-sided. They were dominant, and he finished Figueiredo in both fights. So what Moreno showed was there was not any shortage of chaos in his own camp coming in. His coach, James Krause, was, removed from the organization by the UFC amid a gambling scandal. He had to switch camps at the last minute. but he knows Davison Figueroa well, now fighting him 4 times. And youth was served on this night as Brandon Moreno, the first Mexican-born champion in UFC history, regained his title. Figueroa announced a move up to bantamweight at age 35 after such long weight cuts. But we saw dominance in this flyweight division for a long time with Demetrius Johnson, and it looks like Brandon Moreno might be in a position now to start his own reign now that the boogeyman that has forced him to go back to the well 4 times has finally taken the L and is finally moving up. A big-time win for Moreno.
BC, are we sure now? Are we sure there will be no pentatrillogy? Are we sure about this?
I mean, what are we even going to call it? Is that it? Is it pentatrilogy? I need my dictionary. I need Luke Thomas for this. But I will tell you this, unless Moreno's going to move up in weight and these two end up fighting for a title again, yes, it's over. And this has been one of the most action-packed and historically relevant title feuds, rivalries that we've seen in this sport.
Good stuff there. UFC 283 down in Brazil with Hill and Moreno getting a win. He is Brian Campbell, CBS Sports combat analyst. BC, man, have a good one, man. Thank you. And don't forget, for all things combat, check out the award-winning Morning Kombat with Luke Thomas and our guy right there, BC, Brian Campbell. You can watch the series on YouTube, and you can also listen to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Morning Kombat. Get your gloves taped up. Get ready to rumble. Download and follow today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.